Hello, beautiful creative soul, and welcome back to another episode of Chakra Cure for the Creative Soul, where we're going to be looking at the topic of overcoming anxiety to tap into your cosmic creativity. Hello, my name is Pollyanna Blanco, and I'll be your host today. I am so delighted to be here with you at Chakra Care for the Creative Soul, a show that offers you a sacred invitation to slow down and restore calm so you can tune into your divine creativity. In these shifting times, restoring the sacred to your self-care has never been more important. If you identify as a light worker, I'm here to support you to care as much for yourself as you care for the world while you're birthing your dreams into a beautiful reality. And I've been on this journey now for 20 years as a quantum energy healer and a transformational teacher and an author and a Chakradance facilitator and an intuitive guide along the path. And so this topic is near and dear to my heart. And I hope it will serve you well on your journey, because one of the things that seems to be happening so much in the world, and we've all been touched by it, regardless of where we are on our journey, is how right now in the world there is a lot pulling at our attention. And I've experienced this recently myself too, hand on heart. There's a stickiness out there. And it's because we've been living for a while now through this emergence process, what some are calling the shift of ages. And literally, we are navigating places we've never been before, yet using and relying on old habits, beliefs, coping mechanisms, and structures that are crumbling before our very eyes as we speak right now. And so this is where it's very easy for us to find ourselves going into survival brain mode, even when we've been doing the work for a while, especially if we're empaths, especially if we're highly sensitive people. And so it can start to feel very soupy out there. And the most important message I want you to take away from today's show is that there is a way through it. And the way through it is to care for yourself by restoring the sacred to your self-care. I know in my own journey so far that my old ways of caring for myself have needed to shift. And they continue to shift as I'm sharing this with you right now. And one of the key components that is so essential right now is to create calm. To create calm in what seems and looks like and can be the experience at times of a crazy world. So creating calm in a crazy world. And why is this so essential? Well, when we are not calm, when we're like feeling like we're caught up in a tilt-a-whirl, or even more so dropping down into some, very sad, scared, overwhelmed, or even anxious energies, it becomes very difficult to really tap into our cosmic creativity. So what do I mean when I use the term cosmic creativity? Well, what I'm speaking to here is the divine connection that we all have when we align with our expanded presence, our expanded self. And when we are able to open to this is in those moments where we create spaciousness within, where we are able to turn down all the noise and the static on the line in our heads, the peanut gallery, as I like to call it, and just be able to be here now in the present moment. There was a delightful little story I'm going to share with you right now. This goes back to when I was babysitting my nephew, who's now 15. He was around the age of 5, and I may have shared this before, I can't remember, but it just speaks so well to this moment. I was over there visiting and with him and his mom, my brother's wife, and it was almost dinner time, and we'd finished doing one activity. I think it was an art activity. And then he got his tablet out and he asked his mom if he could watch Charlie Brown on his tablet. And she said yes, as long as, when dinner's on the table, you're going to take a break and come to the table and eat dinner with us. And he agreed to that. He's an honorable little guy at the time. And I remember sitting down beside him, and I hadn't seen Charlie Brown in like forever. And as I was sitting there beside him, I started to kind of wax nostalgic and say, "Oh, Lucy and the Lemonade Stand." And I looked over to my sister-in-law. I said, "I had forgotten about Lucy and the Lemonade Stand," and all these things. And the most profound message came out of my nephew's mouth. He paused, he looked at me quizzically, and he said, "Auntie Polly, be here now." And, out of the mouths of babes, as they say, that's what I always remember was that moment with him, because he spoke truth. And right now, when things are soupy and swirling around us and time only seems to be speeding up, it's understandable that we have moments where we can dip our toe into the swirling waters that are more like a whirlpool. And we have to be really mindful about that and cultivate our presence in this now moment so that we can catch ourselves in those moments and recognize that those moments for what they truly are, an opportunity for us to begin to remember that we are so much more than who we think we are or what our emotions are telling us, and the stories that we keep recycling about our now experience. So, one of the things that has been helping me along the way, as someone who doesn't like to be in large crowds, and yet works with 90 students every day in a high school classroom, and oftentimes finds myself, in situations that, I would rather maybe not have to be around a lot of people. I know during the pandemic, I was one of those people who was like, "Oh, this is amazing," because I am, in my element when I'm in my woman cave, right? I love it because I feel really connected to myself. I feel I'm in rhythm with my own soul. I'm flowing in a way that is my own rhythm, and it's not sort of a constructed rhythm or imposed rhythm by some other group of people or institution. And it's been actually a very big learning experience for me and growth experience for me on a soul level because, I firmly believe that before we incarnate here, our souls make these choices and decisions about what we're going to call into our experience to help us to grow. And in my case, my reason for liking to be, kind of like a hermit, to use, I guess, the word that encapsulates it, is this developing skill, is how I'm feeling guided to say it, of discernment. Being able to discern which is my energy and which is someone else's. That was something that came in really loudly for me when I was working with a coach during the pandemic, and really, and then of course working with my spiritual teachers, Sri Ramka and Master Lady Kira. It was something that I really felt into on a whole new level, and I continue to do so. And I need to continue to remind myself about it because there are so many rabbit holes for all of us these days along the way. And so I invite all of you to consider if in moments where you are preferring not to be in large groups of people because you tend to feel overstimulated or overwhelmed by being in those places, it's all good and it's all okay. Just one thing to notice is there a way that you could possibly be in, you know, of course we all have our preferences, but is there something being called forward in you that is for your highest growth? because one of the things that has helped me to sometimes when I find myself in those situations, they're not my preference. They are, you know, what my soul has called me to in that moment. And, I may reduce the amount of time I spend in those places. And at the same time, I also don't want to get stuck in that story either, that I can't be in a large group of people because I pick up on other people's energy, or I just feel simply overstimulated. Sometimes I find truthfully that I feel more overstimulated than in tune with other people's energy because it's all there. And so it's even hard to discern, the messages in that energy because it's just so loud. And so it's grounding. It's really, really grounding. And I used to always understand grounding, and I still experience grounding as feeling a connection to Mother Earth. What's been emerging in me lately, and I'm feeling guided just to sort of speak intuitively here and sort of through inspired speech, is in this now moment as I'm revealing this with you and also to myself in this moment, is that there's a grounding that happens in my heart and in something that is more than just being connected to the earth. It's the noticing what I'm noticing. This is a practice that my beloved teacher Sri Ramka and Master Lady Kira Ra have been teaching with their 5 medicines practice. I encourage you to check it out at shriandkira.com and catch all their wonderful offerings that they share for free on so many different platforms, because that is where I feel grounding is at in 2024. Being in my body, anchored as ascended presence in this body of form, connected to the earth. See, before it was just, I'm going to connect to the earth to feel grounded. And now it's not either or, it's and. There's a presence that's noticing my emotions, my thoughts, my aches and pains, my stories, my beliefs, my patterns, without judgment and simply with curiosity. And it's anchored here in my body, because that's how I can start to begin to create calm. That's when my body's nervous system starts to begin to respond to that trust, because I'm not checked out. I'm not running on autopilot or in default mode. And what do I mean when I say default mode and autopilot? Well, when life gets really fast, this can be another source of anxiety for a lot of us these days. I'm noticing that a lot of people are talking about time speeding up, and they're talking about it from the point of view that it's kind of overwhelming and they're kind of chasing the clock and they're not getting enough done and the day is just flying by. Because one of the things I feel like a lot of people are just beginning to perhaps discover, and if they haven't already discovered it yet, like awakened to it yet, it's that linear time has collapsed. We're actually living in concentric time. And so we're attempting to live our lives in that linear, logical, sequential timeline, and we're literally bumping up against our edges, like we're pinging off of the sides of those circles that are either keeping us spinning out, or lifting us up and expanding us, or dropping us down. And so what I've been noticing as another source of anxiety these days is that attachment we have to the patterns that are not helping us. They are creating more anxiety. They're making us feel like we're not getting enough done now, and that somehow the same thing's going to happen in the future. And so we're repeating those same beliefs, those same stories in our head. So that's another piece. The being in the survival brain is the first one, and needing to create some calm and some spaciousness. The second one is how we relate to time and how we experience time. And if we're open to noticing what we're noticing as time. I'll give you an example today. I had plans to hop in the car and drive just outside of the city through the country to a lovely town in Ontario that I enjoy visiting called Port Perry, and go for a walk and then have a bite of lunch and then go sit. They have a lovely library there where I can sit and overlook the water in one of these sort of study rooms and just work on my creative stuff. And I woke up this morning, I exercised, and I just was like, you know what? No, it's not a full body yes. I just want to be calm and quiet. I don't want to hop in the car and jump somewhere. And so, and yet, one of the things I noticed at one point, um, I guess I'd say it was in the fall when the weather was still nice enough to drive up there, is that I was getting attached to the routine of doing that. And because I know it made me feel good, and I know it gave me a break from being in the city, and that felt good too. And so sometimes I would find myself doing that trip, even when I was a little tired and I needed to rest, or when it was just too much stimulation, too much going on, and I really needed to be still and take some time just to let things emerge rather than try to plan everything out. And I'm so glad I honored my choice today. I listened to my body. I listened to my thoughts saying, maybe we should go. And then I was like, no, there's a discernment. Which voice am I giving all my attention to sway me? And it was actually when I just created an opening and a spaciousness within me where I wasn't really in my thoughts or my emotions or my spirituality, like the meaning I was making out of things. And I just listened. I listened to my body. I listened to all of it. There was no resistance. It was so crystal clear. It was like, oh, I'm not going to go to Port Perry. That makes a heck of a lot of sense. And I'm completely okay with it. Like the usual kind of pushback wasn't there. Even better yet, the whole reason why I wanted to share that with you today, I'm kind of going off on a tangent there a little bit, which I often do, is that when I honored that choice that felt fully aligned with where I was at in this now moment, not where I had planned to be yesterday, looking ahead to today, which would have been the future if we're talking about yesterday. When I honored that aligned, full embodied yes, something magical happened, and I noticed it. I was consciously aware of it. I had about 4 things that I had put out to the universe that would be lovely to, I guess you could say accomplish, finish, complete today. And instead of doing them in a linear sequence, I'm going to do this, like it's on a to-do list, I was like, okay, what's calling me forward in this now moment? And it was to sit and reflect on something, watch something, be with my own thoughts and feelings about it, and check in with my intuition. And then there were a few other sort of chore-like things, and it's all happened naturally and easily without having to do anything. The languaging, having to do stuff, having to get stuff done, which I think for a lot of us creates a lot of stress in our life. We spend a lot of time talking about all the things we have to do, and then we can drain a lot of our energy. It can just leak out. And so, that's another place where when we get swept up in all these patterns of repeating cycles of thoughts and beliefs and habits and behaviors, just because, right? Just because we did it before, and it gives us a sense, maybe a false sense of knowing what to expect in the future. We may not actually feel anxious in the moment, but what we're doing is kind of trying to steer things so that we can feel okay, as opposed to just noticing in the moment what we need and being okay with that and allowing it to emerge and be. That's the difference in how we can be with time these days. And it's going to take a little while for our minds perhaps to relax into that. The resistance is there when we are, again, in that survival brain that there's a fear attached to it not going the way we expect or want it to go, as opposed to just maybe having some intentions and being open to the possibility of those things completing themselves, resolving themselves, being finished, and then also being okay if they're not, because there's another day, and even another day. It's really, time is a teaching tool. Get a little philosophical here. It's seamless. Back before the clock existed, there was the eternal now. There was no past, present, or future as a concept for human beings. So now we're in a space where those old structures of those limitations of time are crumbling, and at the same time that can create anxiety because they were the pool, the edge of the pool wall that we clung to, even if it didn't make us feel good, right? So whether it's, again, just to recap a little bit, whether it's about discerning which energy is ours and someone else's, or discerning, you know um, what choices we're making and where they're coming from, whether we're sticking to old belief systems and habits and behaviors. These are all ways that we can, pinch off access to our cosmic creativity. So how do we tap into our cosmic creativity? Well, one of the big things that has helped me along my journey so far is to find ways to ground into the present moment, ground into my body, feel calmer inside. So my body is on board with my highest intentions, and to really connect with a trust, because when you really give yourself permission to be in this moment, that's where the spaciousness can come in. If you really listen to yourself with your multidimensional awareness and notice it's okay, I'm okay, all is well, and actually everything's kind of perfect right now as it is, regardless of my expectations about it. And that's where the light can begin to expand, because it's the light of our awareness. Without our awareness, we're walking around bumping against into walls in the dark. And that's painful and uncomfortable. And of course, we're going to feel anxious. And our body's going to go into the fight flight response. You know, I see it. Oh my goodness, and my throat's clearing too as I say that. Um, if you've been noticing that you are feeling joy in moments, those are the moments where expansion is coming in. If you're noticing, conversely, moments where you're feeling ungrounded or sort of agitated, or kind of like you stuck your finger in an electric socket, that's a bit of a extreme example, but that kind of feeling of just being overstimulated, then that's an invitation to slow down and calm down. And there's some ways I really like to do that myself. Of course, I love to walk in nature, and I like to walk in nature by connecting not only to myself and nature, but the nature that's being a soul mirror to me in my environment, to feel that alignment with the trees, with the bird song, with the wind, with the sunshine, to really open to what it's revealing to me in this now moment. That's something that's so calming and so soothing, because it reminds me of my own true divine nature. And that opens me up, and that lifts me out of who I've been telling myself I think I am, which is very, very narrow. And another point I want to make is that these moments of shift, when shift happens, right? That silly saying, shift happening, right? Are it's like when we talk about the cracks of light coming in, they are so small that it's like, and there's a quote by Carl Jung about when you, I don't, I'm kind of butchering it right now, but passing through the eye of a needle, passing through the eye of a needle, you can't take your baggage with you, right? You literally, all you have is your consciousness that can move through that slit. You can't bring all your stories. You can't bring all your wounds. You can't bring all your woulda, coulda, shouldas, your regrets, your fears, your anxiety. There's no space for it. All you can bring is your pure presence. And it's like that eye of the needle moment where we just pass through that needle as we most truly are in our essence and our soul essence and our spirit and our consciousness. And those are the moments where shift really happens in my humble experience, where we recalibrate to a new normal. And as we take a moment, maybe prior to that, that felt so large and loomed so big in our life, and just see that opportunity to pass through that needle, the eye of that needle, the eye of our own, awareness, and then step out on the other side of it, we feel lighter because we've let all of the stuff that was weighing us down go. And when we feel lighter, we remember that we are divine light. We are just refracted light having a human experience. And that what moves us through this human experience is our consciousness. And these are the moments where, when we are struggling to feel better in the moment, going to old coping mechanisms, relying on old stories to give us temporary relief as opposed to offering us that opportunity to shift, the mind can't comprehend how easy it can be, and it will do everything in its power to talk us out of passing through that eye of the needle. It will tell us it's impossible. It will tell us it's, it's, we'll do it tomorrow. It'll tell us it's going to be a waste of time and energy. It'll tell us there are more important things we have to do, or we'll do it later. The key is just to accept the invitation and to recognize in the moment with your own discernment of those, voices, the subtle one that doesn't tell you, do this, do that later. It just says, well, maybe we should see what's there. Maybe we should try it. Maybe we should pass through. I find my intuition always is gentle, and it says, well, maybe, or perhaps, or might be a good idea if. It never tells me do it later. It never orders me around. And so when we can listen to those subtler voices inside of us, that big one, that intuition with a capital I, which is really our presence, our conscious presence and awareness, connected way beyond, anything that would seek to limit us, then that's where we have that invitation to restore the sacred to our self-care. Because I was just working with a client recently, and before we even started our session, I began it with a grounding and a prayer and a connecting to the divine. And at the end of that, it was 3 minutes long. It was so brief and short. She shared with me, she says, I feel amazing. She said, I didn't want that to end. And she said, who knew you could feel like that 3 minutes later? Who knew? And so this is where, when we make the commitment to practice sacred self-care, not just when we have time, not just when we get around to it, but we integrate practices into our daily life in simple yet powerful ways. we don't have to spend an hour, on the meditation cushion. We could, and that would be wonderful too. It doesn't, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can be, and it's not exclusively that way. So this is what I felt inspired and guided to share with all of you today. Another phenomenal way is to get up and move your body, because we are energy in motion. I'm a Chakradance facilitator, relation Chakradance facilitator for about 10 years and counting now. And I love to work with people one-on-one. I love to work with people in small groups in person as well too. I've done that for many years now. I'm shifting more to working with people over distance, one-on-one and in small groups. And that's another incredibly powerful way to begin to notice what you're noticing, because when we're moving our bodies and we're allowing our attention to go inwards and to become sensory, and to allow things to bubble up to the surface when we're moving with it, I find for a lot of people, they feel more comfortable noticing what they're noticing, because it's constantly shifting and changing, and they can flow with it, and they can express in a nonverbal way a response to what is bubbling up. And they can, without even realizing that they're doing it, they're releasing energy, they're playing with energy, they're responding to energy, they're in relationship to their energy field, their energy being, and their presence. And this is why it's so incredibly healing to be able to have that kind of practice, to check in with your body's wisdom, to feel like you're at home with yourself and you're not sort of feeling divided and separate from your body's wisdom, from your emotions, from your thoughts, in a way that's, you can love them and accept them for what they are. So these are all powerful ways that, I've been finding the grounding into the heart, the noticing what I'm noticing, the Chakradance. Another piece that's made an enormous difference in my life, and I am going to share it here, is back 4 months ago, I discovered an incredible way to nourish my gut brain axis. And that has been something too that has really been a game changer in the past 4 months. I also can recognize that, and I notice this from other people that are using this protocol, is that in the first, it depends, right? Sometimes if we've been through a lot of things, the first several months, there may be some old emotions, some old stories, some old experiences and beliefs bubbling up to the surface as our gut heals itself, as our microbiome produces and restores a balance of good, beneficial flora in response to the other ones that were cultivating themselves and creating disequilibrium and disharmony in there. And so it's amazing how, when we have been stuck in a period of anxiety, where we've been feeling like this is how I'm going to decide life is for me, or the world is for me, to have a very simple, easy to use protocol that helps you to achieve a new baseline. That's a powerful way to get traction and to reassure your physical body that you have its back, that you're here now, that you're caring for it. I also have another protocol that I really like to use with clients, that is a protocol I learned through the Institute of Heart Math, and as a building personal resiliency mentor, and it's heart brain coherence breathing. And that is a wonderful way to shift your baseline over time with very short amounts of practice, that enable people who have been feeling that they often are in, high stress situations. Like a lot of first responders, police officers have gone through using this protocol and have been taught this protocol. And it's been very helpful for me, and continues to be a tool in my toolkit that I go back to, because I've seen the results with other people too. And what I want to kind of to put a bow on top of everything I've just been sharing with you that has helped me is that as we get more, as we awaken more and we become more aware of things, I feel like our ego gets a little more clever too. And so one of the biggest reasons I feel like a lot of people, myself included at times when I've had my own inner resistance to really incorporating these practices into my daily life, has been that my ego mind will try to very seductively convince me that it's way too simple to work. It's way too easy or too much fun or too delicious or it's too fluffy bunny. And nothing could be further from this truth. It's a heck of a lot more work to stay in that familiar discomfort zone. And the cost of staying there is so incredibly great. The cost is the meaning and purpose in our lives. That's a whole other show that I feel inspired to to chat about with all of you too. When we lose a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives, and there are a lot of people out there right now, probably not those of you watching this show, but we probably have found ourselves in spaces and places with people who are kind of like throwing in the towel and deciding that things are only getting worse and worse, and life is really hard, and I'm powerless in this situation. I just have to accept things for what they are. It is what it is, but not in a sense of really true acceptance, more in a place of complacency and reticence, as opposed to resilience and acceptance, in order to be focused on moving forward and creative solutions and innovations. So this is really the key, is to recognize your commitment to simple, regular, consistent practices that expand your multidimensional awareness, and ground it into your body, anchored into your body, because you're here now. If you're feeling like the world is too much with you, and I know I've used that phrase before, and I've been there many times myself, or I wouldn't be speaking to this topic with all of you. It's like, if the world is too much with us, where do we go from there? We go into checking out, we go into default mode, and we go into, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And what a lot of us have forgotten is that we lined up for this show. There was a huge wait list to get into Earth School, and OMG, you have temporary amnesia, most likely, like we all do, and you forgot how you camped out to show up for this. So, my goodness, while you're here and you have so many resources available these days, so much support beyond what you can even your ego mind can comprehend. It's like this for all of us, and this is where, as we all share what's working for us, as we all share, there are a million things beyond what I've shared. These are just the things that I found really helpful in my journey. I encourage you to explore all of them. Just ask yourself one discernment when you're, exploring all of them. Does it expand my consciousness? Does it invite me to be more in the present moment, and to love myself and love humanity and just love creation itself, for we are creation itself? Does it allow us to love that more? Because if it does, then it's tapping us into our cosmic creativity, because we are not these little figurines, animated, moving around. We are so much more than that. And when we start to get that wider lens perspective on why we're here, who we are, and all that we have to play with and create with and from and through, it's pure magic. And so I hope that offers you some soul balm and some inspiration today and some things to reflect on, maybe some affirmation, whatever you needed to get today from today's show. I hope it offers you that. If you liked and enjoyed this show, I invite you to share it with other people. And I wish you infinite creative blessings, lots of joy, joy, joy. Keep following those creative breadcrumbs. Keep trusting yourself and the universe more, for you are the universe expressing in human form. And just know that the universe has your back. And the more you show up for yourself and step into new possibilities, the more you'll be shown the way. Keep loving the journey. And until we connect again, be well, beautiful creative soul.